Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I've got a fantastic project here for you. This is the week number 4 of the May stained glass kit. As you see, we've got the week 1 Dove, the week 2 Husky, the week 3 Candy, and now for week number 4 we've got the Seashell. And so we are going to go ahead and get started. And in case you are new here, this is a part of our Stained Glass Mastery community where we have free patterns. You can get all the patterns that you're seeing here. You can, there's many other free resources and a good community of like-minded artists that you can collaborate with, share projects, and ask questions. So if you're interested in that, I will put a link in the pinned comment for you to join free Stained Glass Mastery community. And so for today, we are going to go ahead and get started with our pattern here. And let me know if you have joined us before. So of course, as always, we are using our vinyl pattern here. And we are going to get a few necessary tools out. All right, so first up, we are going to be applying our vinyl pattern here onto our glass. The kit, it came with several colors, and for this project we are going to be using this pattern glass. We're going to be using this side, kind of has some sort of streaky seashell vibes. So that is what we are going to be going for on this project. As you can see, this has a bit of a direction kind of in this way, and so we are going to want to take that into account when we are doing our pattern here. Now, probably what I'm going to want to do is to do the pattern sort of in this direction. So I'm going to go ahead and mark, and you can see on this side, it's kind of like this. So I'm going to want to mark my seashell pattern here, and we will use that to orient the glass properly onto orient the pattern, I should say, properly onto the glass. So this is a 1 glass pattern, and of course it is a part of the kit. And what we're going to want to do is try to use our glass as efficiently as possible. So we are going to probably start with the side that we used last time, and that way we'll get as good of a yield from our glass as we possibly can. And you're going to want to kind of find out which is going to be the best spot that your pattern is going to fit on here to get the best yield possible. Now, of course, we are shipping out the June kits. Next week, we will start the first week of the June stained glass kit, and we've got some really nice patterns there. I believe we've got a dragonfly, and I should really check and see which others we've got in there, but there are quite a few nice ones. I think there's another landscape, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, of course, all those free patterns are available in the Stained Glass Mastery group. And alternatively, if you want to follow along, you are welcome to purchase that kit and do them with me every single week. So we are going to continue sticking our pieces down here. And this one, I would say, is not going to be very beginner friendly, this seashell. It's a little bit, it's got quite a few curved pieces. In fact, every single piece, I don't think there's a single straight line in here. And if there is, it's probably by accident. So we are going to want to watch out for that. And I think that this glass is just going to work out perfectly for this seashell. So here are pretty much the pieces that we're going to be cutting out. And hey, Cynthia, thank you for joining us. Good Sunday afternoon to you as well. So we are going to go ahead and get this first piece cut out and separate it. See, we've got a lot of extra glass here in case we need to recut some things, which I'm sure we just very well might. So I like to just tap it from the back side, and that helps to separate that score line. And then you can just pull it apart with your hands just like that. Now, let's see here. And this is probably, let's see if we can get a little bit of a better zoom in here. There we go. And let's just focus that a little bit better for you. There we go. Okay, you can see that much better now. So we are going to go ahead and cut this down a little bit further. And what I am going to do is actually oil the cutter with my oil here. And yes, Cynthia, you did make it just in time, so thank you for joining us again. Appreciate that. And of course, if you are watching this on the replay, I might be talking to the chat here because we do these live. So just in case you are unaware, that might be why it seems like I am talking to people throughout this video. So again, we are separating these pieces so that we don't mistakenly cut into them when we are trying to separate them. So this is going to just help us a little bit as we move on here. And again, we are cutting this glass, so as you do, I like to sweep off all that debris. Try to keep it from getting into our hands as much as we possibly can. Okay, and I'm wondering if too I can just move this to be a little bit, nope, that's gonna be about the best spot. Okay, so we're gonna have to plan these cuts because we don't want to be, you know, breaking into our pieces here that we want to be a part of the actual, you know, pieces that we're going to be using. So we do want to kind of take our time at this step. There's really no big rush. I like to use the grosers whenever it feels like I might be getting to a point where I might cut my hands. So, so here's one where I actually went right through a piece, just like we did not want to. Fortunately, we can repurpose that one pretty much right here, I think. There we go. So that wasn't a big deal. So we're going to try to tap this through. You can, let's see if you can kind of tell. I'm going to look over here on this close camera. You can kind of see that score starting to work through. So that is what we want here. And then it'll just break exactly on that score line, just like we want. And now the other parts were kind of the worst parts that were going to be harder to get apart without breaking into our pieces that we want to keep. So these other pieces are pretty easy to separate. And if you are thinking about getting started in stained glass, there's really no substitute to actually getting some glass in your hands and working with it. So these videos will take you only so far. You really need to kind of get started and see what you think. And if you're trying to get started on a little bit of a budget here, a good way to do that would be to look on Facebook Marketplace for some used tools and glass. And you can sometimes pick up free clear glass that you can use for cutting. So that can always be very useful for you. And there we go. So here we are. Pretty much all of our pieces are just about fully separated. And this particular glass is an Oceanside glass, which is the company that purchased Spectrum glass. If you remember that old company that has been long gone for quite a while now. Many of the people who did stained glass before that still call it Spectrum glass out of a habit. But at least from my point of view, they've been erased from my memory as Spectrum glass. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and switch to another view here where you can see maybe a little bit more up close what we are doing here. So what we like to do is take our scoring wheel of the cutter right on the edge of this vinyl and just using this as a nice guide. And normally I like to score all of the edges first, and then we can go through and kind of break it off. Just like that. And then we will proceed with doing the exact same thing here. All all the way around this thing. And if you don't cut it perfectly the first time, we're going to use these as a bit of a guide on the grinder, and that's going to make it really easy for us to get a perfect shaped piece every time. And as you saw, we have many additional, quite a bit of additional glass in case we need to recut any pieces, so that's not a problem at all either. And if you are doing this pattern using your own scrap gloss, of course we do have this pattern for free on the Stained Glass Mastery live stream. Group. So that is an option if you want to still do the pattern but not purchase the glass. And I'm going to go ahead and put on my little glove here. So we're going to get this thing all pinged all the way around. And there's a little bit of glass left right here, but we're going to probably take care of pretty much all of that using the grinder. I'm going to go ahead and grozier off just a little bit, and then we'll set it aside for here in a few moments. And we're going to have a little bit of scrap glass we can throw away, and the rest of these shards, sweep them right off. Okay. Going to go through, cut all this off just like that. Go through and cut all of this off just like that. So this is what I meant when I like to score it all first and then go back and break everything down. So you can see there are many curves on this particular pattern. So not the most advanced necessarily, but definitely not the best for a beginner. Unless you want to just take your time and be patient with it, you can do this as a beginner. It's just going to take you maybe a little bit more glass and a little bit more patience. And of course, if you are watching this live, you can ask questions in real time and get those answered. And if I even have the proper tools to do a demonstration, I can go ahead and do that for you too while we're here on the stream. Okay. So we're going to go through and score all these pieces and then go back and break all that glass off. So this is the reason why we separate them in the very beginning, because now it's very easy for us to just go through and kind of cut or score everything without worrying about scoring into one of our adjacent pieces. So normally when I like to do these projects, I like to do all of the same activity first and then move on to the next one. So we're going to do all the scoring, then we're going to do all of the breaking, then all the grinding, and then we're going to be cleaning out all that grinding dust, glass dust, and then we are going to be doing all the foiling, then all the burnishing, and then of course the soldering. Oop, that one's already done. Now this is probably going to be the hardest piece with this kind of sharp curve here, so we're going to show you how I plan to do that. And I might even go ahead and take care of this one before I do some of the others. I'm going to keep this one to the side so I can do that one first. This one is another one of those. And a lot of this we might end up just getting on the grinder. It'll probably just end up being a lot easier that way. Okay, we got everything scored, and now we are going to go through and start to break them off. So when you are scoring, of course, you want to try to keep that nice consistent pressure all the way through. You don't want to be picking up, starting, stopping, that type of thing. And it normally makes a little bit of a consistent kind of scratching sound. And so that's what you want to hear. And again, there's really no substitute for just practicing. So if you do have any sort of specific hiccups here, you can, of course, ask those questions, and I'll do my best to answer them and possibly even demonstrate. So here we've got these kind of curvy areas, and we're going to just pop these down, and we're going to do our best to not break this glass the wrong way. So you see how if we do a little bit of a shallower radius in there, and then we can kind of go back, and right now I'm just kind of barely chewing out this glass with the grosers, just getting it closer to my little line there. And we're just taking a tiny bit of pressure at a time. I'm not really squeezing this glass, or else we're just going to bing, break right through. So this, you know, when it's cut like this, it's very weak in this spot. So we're trying to really make sure we're not going to mess that up as much as we can. And I really need to get myself one of the little 1/4 inch grinder bits for on top of the 1 inch diameter bit, and that'll be really easy for us to grind this little spot out. But if you just chew it out with the grosser slowly but surely, you know, we're going to have a nicely prepared piece, and you could try to get that cut. It's pretty sharp radius there, so good luck doing it that way. But whenever it's like that, I normally just end up chewing them out with the grosers. And it's kind of a learning curve, the grosers. You know, you have to kind of figure out how to handle the glass without really, you know, making a mistake, kind of knowing the strength of the glass and knowing how hard you can kind of squeeze on it and push it. And even then, I still make some mistakes now and then. So this is probably going to be the hardest piece. We pretty much got that one done. Going to go ahead and move it along here. And hey, Mary, thank you for joining us. So again, we've got all of our glass scored already, and we can now just continue to break these pieces off. So you see how I don't have any extra time picking up the scoring tool, and I can just keep one tool in my hand and just keep moving from piece to piece. And so here we're going to have to probably grind those two down. You can see they're still a little bit rough, but we can fix that on the grinder. And a few things I need to add to my workspace here. I need to add a second pair of grosers, and I need to add a smaller diameter grinding bit. That will be very useful for the, you know, for the projects that we do. And we're just going to take this nice and slowly. Something like this, I'm probably going to do a few extra scores. Let me get all the extra glass that we don't need off, and then we'll go back and do that. So I'm going to go ahead and sweep this off. We've got a big mess here. Sweep all that off. So see, we've got this kind of big area right here. So instead of trying to break it through there, I don't have as much leverage. I'm just going to cut this down and remove a lot of that meat. And then you see how much easier it is for me to kind of access this score. And what I'm probably going to do is even cut this another shallow, just like that. See that? If you have it a little bit shallower, then it makes it much easier to get down to your score line. And it really doesn't take much extra time at all. So there you have it, ready for grinding. Move that to the side. Do the same thing here. Get all these popped off. And I like to use the flat end on top, the curved end on the bottom. And Cynthia mentioned that she got a 1/4-inch grinding bit from Temu, and that works pretty good. So that might be a good budget option if you wanted to do something like that. Go ahead and sweep all this off. And again, I'm going to be cutting these a little bit shallower. Now, if I sort of had the foresight, I would have cut these a few extra scores when I was scoring everything. That would make it a little bit easier for me. But that's okay. Maybe when you do yours, you can go through and add those in, those little shallower curves, because you kind of know you're going to need to. There we go. And here we're going to do the same thing. Pop those off. And I might even want to do another shallower curve here. We'll see how easy this comes off here. You really just want to take your time, because it's very weak. Right here, if it is to break, it's going to break something like this. It's very weak in that direction. And there we go. All right, we got it. So a little bit of cleaning up on the grinder, and we'll be good to go. So we'll continue on here with this piece. And you can see there's a lot of debris sort of collecting up here. I don't necessarily need to mess with that until I need to. So I could just keep on popping these pieces off. Unless I need to do another score, there's really no need for me to put the glass down and to clean all this area up yet. And Cynthia mentioned that she also got a couple pairs of Grosers and copper foil from Temu too. That it was a pretty good budget option, except for that the copper foil was a little bit thin. And I know personally, when they're too thin, it seems like they break a lot whenever you are burnishing. And that gets a little bit annoying for me. But you might be able to, if you got the extra patience, you might be able to get away with that too, I think. So this piece, we're going to try to hinge it a little bit on this score. Sometimes it'll just pop right off, and other times you have to do another little score in here. Gives you just that much more leverage. See that? And then we're going to. And Cynthia mentioned she has trouble at the point of the end of the curve. And yep, that is kind of a tricky spot. Whenever these come to a really sharp point, it's common for them to pretty much break. They're very weak, and they can break kind of like this. And depending on how, if it's a tiny little break where maybe maybe a little bit's missing, I don't really worry about it. But if it breaks like this, of course, you're going to have to recut something like that. But yeah, if you kind of strategically plan the breaking process to where you'll have the most meat on it, and maybe you can just grind a little bit down to kind of finish it off if there's a little bit more, especially if you keep having a problem. If you break it in a little bit of a different order, for example, if this had more glass on it, and let's say this glass piece, let's actually do this over here. Let's say this glass piece was shaped kind of like this, and you kind of do your score like this. Well, if you break this side first, and then break this side first and it breaks, well, try breaking it in the opposite order. Break this side first and this side. And if still you're having a problem, you might have to try to do something with the grinder to try to just pretty much get it to work But those little, when they get really thin, especially like at the tips of the little points, that is probably the most tricky part, I would say. Now this one, oh, there we go, we did get it after all. I was going to say we might have to cut a little bit more off. And again, we can just clean this up on the grinder. So it's got a few of these little areas poking out. That is some grinder work. So we'll pop all these off here. And here's a really thin point right here. So this is kind of what Cynthia's talking about. So what I'm probably going to do, let's see, I'm definitely going to cut these a bunch of shallower pieces. Might even try to split that one in half. I'm going to do the same thing here. Because we want, and another thing is if you make sure your cutter is oiled, it seems to help just a little bit more. Okay. So we pretty much got this thing all scored down. Now we're going to give this a shot. We're going to break this part off first. And it has almost no risk of the point breaking because there's still a decent bit of glass on this side. So when we move to the other side and breaking it, that's when we might have a problem here. So let's see what happens. What I'll like to do is, so we got that broken down to where there's still a little bit of meat on that part. And we're just going to try to remove our little curves as much as we can. And right here is where we could have a problem. Let's see. So I'm going to just lightly work up to it, grosuring a little bit of gloss away. And to be quite honest with you, at this point, it's such a thin little spot right here, I'm just going to go back on the grinder and knock that down. Because if I try to keep grosuring this, I'm going to just break it right across this very tiny thin little spot. So I'm just going to make sure to grinder that bit off. And that will keep me from having to recut it. Because I can see the future, and we have a little broken corner in our future if we keep trying to grosure it. So we're going to sweep all that off. And we've got one more piece here to break. So we're going to go through with the grosures. As I'm sure you're tired of seeing at this point, we're just going to keep popping these pieces off little by little. And I kind of stabilize the bottom with my bottom hand. And so I'll put my finger right where the break is, or where the score is, I mean. Bring the grosures up to my finger. And that helps me to just kind of stabilize it a little better so I don't do a big jerking motion. Because whenever you have this sharp gloss in your hands, you want to be careful so you don't poke yourself. And the glass, you know, especially when you're trying to exert a lot of force, and it finally breaks, and then you have this kind of, you know, a fast motion. Well, it can be tricky. You know, you're holding it with a pretty fleshy hand, so you want to be careful not to get yourself there. But oh, you know what? We have one little piece. I actually missed it way over here. This is the little center part of that shell. The little center. We can't forget that part. Okay. And if in case I mess this up, I've got a little bit of scrap gloss on the ground. I can give it another shot. But let's see here. This one's not too bad because there's no real like narrow points. So I think we're going to be able to get this, except for the fact that it's a little bit small even for my hands to grip. So that's maybe the only tricky part. I'm going to knock this down a little bit more. And then we're going to clean that up on the grinder. So now I need to remove this part, and I still need to get my hands on more grosures. And I'm going to have to set a reminder. And so I'm going to show you how I do this with only one pair. So what I'm going to actually do here is I'm just going to break this thing off and clean it up on the grinder. See if I can actually get this as is. Oh, I did. Okay, so that wasn't too bad. But I'm just gonna have to clean this up on the grinder. And I might try to just grosure it off a little bit. Okay, it comes off. So this one's still big enough where I can still get a little bit of a grip with my hands. But if not, you know, pretend like I'm holding another pair of grosures on this side. You know, I've got two in my hand. Well, that's how you'd want to do it if you don't feel comfortable. Because sometimes these little, like I said, you're pretty fleshy holding the sharp glass. You're going to be, you know, poking yourself and bleeding everywhere. So we want to avoid that, of course. All right, moving on to the grinding. So this step, it's a little bit messy. And what I like to do normally for these live streams, I kind of keep everything within the camera's vision. So I'm a little bit limited to the setup I can have here. But I normally have a piece of cardboard, like a box, all the way around it, because it shoots a lot of splatter everywhere. I can show you. You can kind of see there's a bunch of splatter right here, some splatter right here. Normally, you know, there was some glass I put in the front, but it's got a bunch of splatter right there. That's all. Oh, look, see all that splatter? And that's all from the grinder. So normally, I'll kind of set up a little cardboard box, kind of like this and like this, to sort of keep all that splatter, you know, from getting everywhere. But in our case here, we are, you know, there'll be a lot of setup for me. So I'm going to try to keep the splatter from getting onto the camera. I'm going to cover it up for just a second here. And then we are going to go through and start to grind everything down. So again, this vinyl template is just insanely useful to get us ground down all the way to it. And we know that our piece is the perfect shape. And the only thing is when it gets really wet, especially on these tiny pieces, where it doesn't have much surface area to adhere to the glass, it can come undone. So you kind of have to be a little bit careful. I'm kind of holding this, I'm kind of squeezing the template down right now so it doesn't come off, but it's pretty much already dislodged. See that? But this is already pretty much exactly the shape I want it. I'm going to just compare it a little bit more, kind of round this out a little bit better. And once we are, you know, ready to solder and everything, we're going to check it out and see how our pieces fit. And this is really a great way to go for beginners. And Cynthia mentioned that she saw somebody using a fish tank on its side, and she liked that and puts the whole grinder in it. Yeah, that is something you could do too. Fish tanks, I believe they are a clear acrylic normally. It's a sort of a polymer-based product, unless you have a glass one. And the glass one might be a little bit fragile to be sort of putting it on its side and everything. But if you do have sort of an enclosed acrylic cage, if you will, that will pretty much do exactly what you need. And if you do want the budget option, again, that cardboard box, just get your Amazon box and just put it, you know, put that box all the way around it, and that'll keep that splatter down too. And Cynthia mentioned with the water bottle method, just poking a hole in it, shooting the little grinder with the water. That's how I've always done it too, and she seems to have really liked it now that she picked that up. And so yeah, thanks for sharing that, Cynthia. I appreciate that. Never know what you don't know until you kind of look around and find out what kind of methods other people do. And that's something that's been really helpful for me in the stained glass mastery community. I've been seeing a lot of other people's setups and seeing what they do. And because we have a welcome post there where people will post their workshop. And it's pretty interesting to see all the different setups people have, and never know what you might pick up on. So that's our next piece, all grinded down. And the grinding, it's really a pretty simple, you know, idea here. We are just, this wheel, it doesn't hurt you. See, I'm touching it. It's just a diamond whatever type wheel, diamond coated or something like that. And it's not, you know, it is abrasive, of course, but it's not going to cut you. It's not very sharp. So that's an insanely useful tool. Super recommend it. It is, of course, inside of our glass cutting kit. And, you know, if you want to do stained glass, I really recommend you spending some money on a grinder. Even if you just find one used on Facebook Marketplace, you may get a few more years out of it. And so highly, highly recommend that. And what I'm doing right now is kind of beveling this backside. Sometimes the glass is still a little bit sharp on the backside from whenever you cut it, especially if you use the grozers a lot. It kind of breaks it out. And this will just knock all that down, make it a little bit smoother and easier to handle. So that's why I kind of bevel it from the backside. And so we're just going to, again, take this down to our little template. And if you need to, wear some heavy-duty gloves, because the edge of the glass is pretty sharp, and it can cut you. There we are. Alrighty. Making pretty good progress here. So this, we're going to see how well this grinder works in that spot that was very tight radius. Don't think it's going to do as good as we're hoping, but fortunately I was able to get it pretty smooth. If you want to smooth it out a little bit more, you can grab a sandpaper used for like woodwork, and you can kind of get it in there and sand it down a little bit. You know, that's a very slow method, kind of worst case scenario situation. But, you know, if you have no other option, like in our case, we don't have our 1/4-inch bit yet. So, you know, they have them where they actually sort of set on top of the 1-inch diameter bit. And it works very well. It's a very nice little system that they do. And so I'm definitely going to be getting that very soon from our store. I know we stock a few different variations, and I think I'm even going to be adding that to our glass cutting kit, because really, it's really not that much more expensive, but the versatility it gives you is immense. So I do think I'll actually also be adding that to our kit, glass cutting kit. And we've got a few more pieces to grind down here. Here's that little tip that we were talking about earlier. So we're just going to take it down slowly with the grinder. And this will give us a nice shape that we can use for our there we go, for our panel here. And we're just going to ground the other side down just a little bit, so we still have our little tip intact there, thankfully. And we're just going to continue on here. There we have it. Got this piece ready to go. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and knock down the back side a little bit more. And we've got a few more pieces here. So this is one where it's not going to quite fit in there. See how close we can get it. Might be one of those things where we end up simply going as far as we can, and there might be a little bit of a void where we couldn't get it as well with the 1-inch diameter, but it's not the end of the world. It just will have a little bit more solder infilled in that specific location, which is okay. And I am kind of handling this a little bit. It's making that pattern come undone, but I think we can manage. And so this, this is not too bad. It looks pretty good. Maybe a little bit off right here. Let's see if I can get that a little bit further. There we go. That came out pretty good. So that I think we can live with. All right. And Cynthia asks, I noticed there are 5 different size beds, angle, ripple, helix, fast. Why do they have so many different sizes, and why are they named that? Oh, bits, not bed. So they have 5 different size bits. Oh, the ripple bits. Are you talking about that bit that is shaped? Let's see if I can draw this out. It's sort of shaped like this. It sort of comes up, and then it's got this shape right here like this. Let me know if that's what you're talking about. Okay, we're going to go ahead and knock this one down a little bit further on here. All right, that one looks good. Got a few more pieces here. Oh, this is the one with the very tight radius. I'm going to go ahead and kind of push down this template, make sure it's really holding on. And yeah, this one, it's going to be very difficult, if not impossible, to get into that little spot. So we're just going to kind of knock it down a little bit. And we're going to work with what we've got for that part. And then we are going to go through and get this thing all grinded down. And after this step, we are going to be moving on to the foiling. Well, actually, first we got to clean these up, get all this glass dust off, and then we're foiling. And I think I might actually start having a little cup of water to drop these into as soon as we are done grinding, and that way the little glass dust won't dry on there. I think it'll be a lot easier for us to remove all that debris instead of having to apply additional glass cleaner. So let's go ahead and just do it the old-fashioned way here. We're going to go ahead and move on with a rag and our favorite blue glass cleaner. Nothing fancy. Now, do want to show you too. We're going to go ahead and dry this off. We got some of that grinder splatter on here like we talked about. And we are going to go ahead and remove all of our vinyl because they are all the right shape now. So we can now remove it and kind of just try to put it back right where it goes. And we'll just keep on keeping on here. And you might be able to get another use out of these, but more than likely you will need to glue them back down with a little you can get a little glue stick, one of those like children's Elmer's glue stick type things. They're water soluble, I believe, and you can pretty easily glue these down and trace them if you wanted to. If you wanted to reuse it, of course, this kit comes with 2 patterns, so you can do it again, or you and a friend or your spouse, whoever you want to create with stained glass with, you are able to do so. And yeah, I'm not too sure about that, Cynthia. She mentioned that the package with the 1/4-inch bit lists other sizes you can get, and that's what they are named. I'm assuming that it is a branding, maybe just a Helix branding situation, or I'm wondering if it has something to do with the shape of the little insert right here. I don't know if it has anything to do with that shape, because it does have a flat end where they used a little hex Allen wrench screw to secure the bit to the shaft of the grinder. So it's possible that's what they are kind of referring to. And so with that, we've got our little pattern back together here. I'm going to go ahead and put that aside for now. Okay, so we are ready to go ahead and get these all cleaned up so we can see all this white glass dust everywhere. So we are going to take them, and we are especially wiping down the edges, being very careful. Now this one has a little bit more of this sharp edges here. I'm going to knock that down a little bit more on the grinder. And I've got a little bit on the back side. And this will just make it a little bit easier for us when it comes time to foil. So right now is a good time to get these pretty clean and set them aside for us to foil here in just a moment. So again, this is a pretty important step to not skimp out on. We don't want to compromise the adhesion of our foil if we can help it. And so starting next episode, we will be incorporating a little cup to drop our pieces in so that all this glass dust doesn't dry on there. We will be getting a 1/4-inch bit, and we will be getting another pair of grozing pliers for the tiny little pieces that can be a bit of a nuisance to separate without. So that's a little bit of a to-do list. I'll have to, when I go back and review this video, I'll have to make my little list and put it on my calendar, make sure I actually do it sometime next week. And just about got this. There we go. And this side does have a pretty difference in the two colors on each side of the gloss. This is a little bit more red violet-y. This is a little bit whiter. So the seashell I thought would look very nice with the red violet-y side. And one thing I like about this gloss is that it shows up very well even in low light. So if you look at some paler glosses where they don't show up as well in low light, you'll need a light source behind them in order to properly illuminate it. So from our point of view, if you are in a windowless area like I am here, I prefer to use these more opaque glosses, whereas if you have a good window you can hang stuff in, then you are going to want to probably use more paler glosses. Not to say that the opaque glosses don't let in light still, and they definitely change a little bit from when the light is passing through versus when they are not. But it is just something to consider. There we go. Okay. So this is the side we're going to be using. This is the back side. And we've got a few more pieces here. We've got these two. And our little tiny centerpiece right there. And the seashell is perfect for the summertime to go to the beach. And so this would be a nice project for summertime. It's a good timing. There we go. And we've got 2 more little pieces here. Make sure to rub those down. All right. And our last little piece here. All right. Okay. So now we are all cleaned up, ready to begin the foiling. So let me move you over here to the side. All right. So we are going to be using this foiler here, and I'm going to go ahead and pull out a little bit of foil, make sure we've got all nice fresh stuff here. All right. So with our pieces here, I'm actually going to put them up here and sweep this area off because we have a lot of glass debris from when we were breaking that glass. There we go. Okay. So this foiler has a little groove in it that you can set your glass in, and it will center it perfectly on the foil. And then you kind of push it into the foil, and as you push it, it will stick that foil onto the edge, and you can kind of round that edge, and it'll just apply it just like you would expect. There we go. And once you get back to the beginning, you can just overlap it about 1/4 inch. And now we're going to go back and fold everything down. And these spots where you've got this curve here, you want to be careful and make sure to just gradually push it down so it doesn't have a little tear. And so this is our first piece. We're going to go back and burnish these here in a few moments. So we can go ahead and get started on the next one right where we left off. And this glass, I do notice, has a little bit of variation in the thickness. In some areas, it's a little bit thicker than 1/8 of an inch. And when that happens, you can still use the groove as a bit of a guide, but you might have to, or you won't be able to stick it in there. So it's a little bit of a learning curve, but it still is useful, even if the glass is a little bit thicker. And I think we might have used this glass last time, and I had a similar situation. So if you're wondering about that, you can check that video out. I believe it was, what was last week's? It was the candy. That's right, the candy. A little mint. And the people in the stained glass mastery community had a few variations of them, and I really enjoyed seeing that. So definitely check out that community, and it was neat to see all of the different variations people did with their own glass. One of them, they even used clear as the wrapper on the sides, and I thought that was very good. I thought that looked great. Kind of jealous I didn't think of that myself. But yeah, so that worked out. That was a great idea to do. Some others made some different flavors between peppermint and other flavors, so that worked out good. So always enjoy seeing people's ideas. Okay, so this is a spot. It's a pretty sharp in there. There we go, we got it. And there we have it. Back to the beginning, we'll cut this off and fold everything down. So right here we've got these two little curves in here. We're just going to gradually push them down with our finger. And we got a little bit of a cut right there. I'll show you how to address that here in just a moment. And sometimes it's just not possible to not get them if they're too sharp, which in this case they pretty much were. And these spots are even a little bit small for me to get my hands in, so I'm going to get my burnishing tool and go ahead and knock it down just a little bit further. And this way I'll see where we need to do some repairs. See, there's a little tear right there. And on the other side, no tear on that spot, but on the other curve, there's a little tear right there too. There we go. So we'll go through and do some little quick repairs here. Normally I'll do the repairs after I've burnished so that there's really no issue with any air gap. So I'm going to go ahead and do that here in just a few moments. We're going to get back to foiling the rest of these pieces. All right, there we go. Cut that off. Get back to folding it over. I like to just zip it up to the next corner and fold it over, zip it up to the next corner, and fold that over. There you go. This is our piece with that tiny little point. And it's made it this far. It might make it all the way. We'll see. You don't want to count your eggs too early. It's also a weak point when it comes to the heat from the soldering iron. So that is something to consider. And most of this little point, pretty much all the point is all covered with foil anyway, so it's going to be pretty much soldered anyway. And depending which sort of width of foil you use, the more of that will be covered. So here we're using 7/32, which is kind of a middle of the row. And if you're a beginner, I'd recommend using a 1/4 inch. It's just a little bit more forgiving. It has a little bit of a thicker looking bead, but if you're, still learning, you don't need to worry about it looking with very delicate lines and everything like that. You just need to make sure it's going to hold together well. Practice your soldering and your cutting, and you'll be well on your way. There we go. Pop that down. Just like that. Making pretty good progress here. Oops. And of course you can substitute these glasses if you've got a nice scrap glass that you want to use. There we go. And fortunately, I have not had any problems getting cut too badly on this light screen yet. A few pokes and a little bit of blood here and there, but nothing too bad. So it is kind of the nature of the beast with glass. If you're going to be working with glass, there's a good chance you're going to have a little bit of some cuts now and then. It's kind of just the way it is. It's not a big deal as long as it's not too severe. You just got to be very careful and do your best to protect yourself with gloves and safety glasses and whatever else you feel like you might need. We've got a few more pieces to apply the foil here, and then we will be moving on to the burnishing. There we go. And this foiler does a good job getting everything centered nicely, give you a nice even reveal of foil on both sides. Really takes a lot of that sort of skill, learning curve, I should say, out of it. Does still require a little bit of a finesse to get this to work perfectly, but for the time's sake, I believe that this is far superior than just fully by hand. There we go. And next up, there we go. Okay. Got all of our foil pretty much applied now. We can move on to burnishing and doing any little foil repairs. There we go. So now we will go ahead and set this aside for the moment. And we are going to move on to burnishing. We can get all this backing thrown away. Oh, you know what? We forgot our tiny little middle piece right here. Go ahead and get this all done. And this one, it can be a little tricky to fit into this tiny little groove. I don't know if you can see that from over there. Let me move this in. So I got just this tiny little piece right here. I'm just kind of slowly spinning it kind of in place. And before you know it, we are fully covered. Go ahead and grab my little blade here, cut that off. And then we can get back to the burnishing over here. Got this tiny little piece right here. There we go. All right. Now we will go through and get this thing all nicely burnished down. So here we are just trying to make sure that all of the adhesive in the foil is just sticking very nicely to that surface of the glass. And we want a little bit of a reveal onto the face for the solder to run onto, and that's kind of what gives the whole panel all the strength. So we're going to move over here to this close camera so I can show you a little repair we need to make. So you can see right here we've got a split. Let's see if you can see that. Right here we've got a little split, so I'm going to take a little piece of foil. And since this piece is already burnished, we can make this repair. So I am just going to really just put a tiny little piece right here. And I'm going to burnish that down. And then I'm going to cut it down with the X-Acto blade to fit the contour of that foil underneath it. There we go. And then we'll have a nice foil reveal for our solder. Pop this off. And there you have it. Just going to burnish that down a little bit better. Now that little tear is repaired, I'm just going to touch up anything else that needs to be done. There's actually a little bit of a tear right here too. So we're going to take a little bit more of this foil, kind of pop it down right there, and burnish this back down. Then we'll go ahead and cut this down too. And this looks a little bit ugly. I'm going to go ahead and just trim that down a little bit too. So the X-Acto blade's a really useful tool for correcting any of this type of stuff. Here we go. All right. And so this is our next, or I guess our first piece done. Ready for soldering. Go ahead and take care of this piece next. So again, we are doing the edge first. All the way around. And then the face. And this glass, it's a little bit thick, so you see we've got a pretty thin foil line on this side, but it does cover the edge a little bit, so we're going to accept it. And then we are going to make sure we don't need any little repairs. Looks like there might be a need for one right there. Let's see. And actually, no, that looks good right there. Go ahead and burnish this side down. And when we burnish, we're doing it in towards the middle, because if you burnish middle outward, you're just going to knock that foil right off the edge of that glass. You'll have to do some repairs to get that. So this piece is properly burnished. Now we've got this tiny little piece. Going to have to mostly kind of do it by hand. Not to say that everything here is going to be done by hand, but a little bit harder to burnish it on the table from the edge. The face you can burnish pretty easily still on the table, as long as you hold it with the other hand, you can kind of manage. There we have it. Continuing on here. with the edge first. Down onto the face. And these corners, you have to be very careful. You want to make sure you keep that foil folded over when you turn that corner. Because if you remember, when you applied the foil, you kind of had to fold it over from one of the corners, and it's pretty easy to knock that off and make a little bit of a problem. So you want to make sure to go through and burnish it down the same direction that you folded it. Right here, we might need a little bit of a repair. This looks a little bit off here. This is that little tip that we worked hard to save. And I think I'm going to put a little bit of a foil right there, right across from it. Shouldn't be a big deal. I'll probably just do something about like this. And that should pretty much do it. I'm going to make sure to burnish this down. Fold it down, burnish it down. And I might even cut a little bit of a corner into it. I think that will pretty much hold right there. And we'll go back when we solder it. It will be one at that point. So again, doing the edge here. And hey, Ella, thank you for joining us. Go ahead and do the face now. In towards the middle as always. Being careful with these corners. If you see that you knocked it off in one direction, just go in the other direction and it should fold back down pretty relatively easily. A little tricky spot right here. There we go. And so this one I need to go left to right. That's how I folded it down. My left to right. From your end, it's the other direction. There we go. Get this out of the way. And we are getting this all the way down. And Ella mentioned today is her parents' 60th anniversary, so congratulations to them. That is a long time, 60 years. I am on my, let's see if I can do the quick math in my head. I believe my 6th year of marriage. 6th year, so 60 years, that's a long time. 60 years. And very good, very good. And on Memorial Day weekend, that is nice for them. And of course, tomorrow we do have a Memorial Day. Remembering all those fought for our country. So thank you to those veterans, of course. Right. And we do have a little few things here I want to take care of with the X-Acto blade. Go ahead and see if we can just cut this. There we go. Got it. Just to even that little foil run out. Because anything you see in the foil, it will show when you solder it. So these little tiny adjustments, I'm going to go ahead and put a little repair. Actually, this one folded down. Just burnish that back down. Oh, nope, now it tore off. Do a little repair there. And we will burnish it down like we do the others. And then we'll cut it to shape. All right. Get this all popped off. There we are. We've got a few more pieces here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more pieces for the burnishing, and then we will move on to the soldering. So this is a pretty good project. Again, really enjoying this glass. I think it's going to look really good for the seashell. And we'll go ahead and get the other side. Make sure to get those corners going down the right way. There we go. All right. Got the edge first, back down to the face. Making sure that the corners are done in the way that we folded them. We've got a little bit here we're going to need to add on to. Make sure there's, yeah, it might have been a little bit thick there, that piece of gloss. So it's okay, we can add on a little bit more. There we go. And we've got a little bit of a spot we're going to want to fix on this side too. Right here, there's a little bit of a non-smooth transition. We can look over here on the close camera. We can see, where did that go? Right here. Kind of see that, how it'll pop out. So we're just going to just barely trim that away just like that, and that'll make it blend a little bit better. And then on this side, do we need to do a little, oh yes, we do right there. We need to do a little repair. So I'm going to pull out a little more foil. And kind of get that down right there. Tear this off. We're going to go ahead and burnish it first and then cut it down. Because if you don't burnish it, it's going to be moving around. And then if it's really tiny, it's kind of hard to burnish it at that point. It has a lot less surface area to stick. So you're going to want to burnish it and then cut to size. And then after you cut it, you can just try to push it down a little bit more. All right. A few more pieces here. Make sure to get into these curves very well. All the way around the edge here. And then we'll go down for the faces. So we'll do this side first. Kind of taking it easy on these curves. We don't want to tear them if we can, help it. And if you do, we've done several repairs at this point, so you're very familiar with what needs to be done. And on this side, we've got just a tiny bit of foil here on the edge. I think I'll probably add a little bit more there, just to be safe. So we can see this bottom part. It has a little bit of foil on the face there. I think it'll be all right, actually. It's got a little bit on the face, so we'll call that good. Go ahead and move on to our next piece here. Oops, there we go. Alrighty, got the first side down. Now for the second side. There we go. And now for our very last piece, and now it is time for the soldering. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the iron. And funnily enough, I actually realized yesterday I had left the iron on all week long. So don't do that. We're going to see if this iron works today. If not, I have another spare I can grab really quickly. But we're going to see if this iron works. It was still hot yesterday when I kind of checked. I was like, you know what, did I turn that off last week? And sure enough, I did not. So we are going to go through and see if we need to swap it out. And I'll kind of be surprised if it does hold on without any issues, because it was on for literally a week. So I think I was in a bit of a rush last week. I think I had to take off somewhere. There we go. Get all that peeled up. And we've got another piece right here we need to trim down. There we go. And there we have it. Oh, another little piece we want to trim down right here. Got it. Okay. So now we are ready to move on to our soldering. So we are going to sweep everything off. And we're going to need to actually get our pattern back out so we can see where we are supposed to be putting all of the pieces. And then we can take a quick, closer look and see how we did with the cutting and the fitting of each piece. And we can see our little pattern here shooting out in all the directions that we wanted. So that worked out very nicely. This has kind of that red violety color that we see in seashells sometimes. Now seashells are pretty well multicolored, so you know many different glosses will pass for the seashell, I would say. Okay. Here we go. And I'm liking the way this is looking so far. Let me know what you think. Now, how does this one go? It goes like this. Now, the main issue that we're going to be facing here is that this piece right here, we couldn't quite grind it down enough. So we might have a little bit of a void there. Let me see, this piece kind of went like this. But you know, it looks pretty good, pretty good. A little bit of voids here and there. I think with that right grinding wheel, you'll have no problems at all. It just kind of throws everything off just a tiny bit, just enough to be a little bit of a gap creator. But a little bit of gaps is not the end of the world. There we go. So let's check the fitting here. So everything fit pretty good right here. This is where we couldn't quite grind it down quite enough because of the diameter of the grinding wheel. But I think this is fitting really well together, and I'm very happy with the way this is looking so far. Let me know what you think. And Ella mentioned this is the perfect gloss for the project. I couldn't agree more. And let's have a vote for where we should put the little hook. I'm thinking we should have it right here, number 1. So location 1 is right here. Location 2, let's see, should it be on its side? No, that doesn't look right. It has to me it has to look, kind of hang like this. Gosh, how else could it hang? Would it look good like this? Kind of like a little thing right there? Nah, I think it actually has to be. Okay, it's decided. We'll do location 1. All right. So that is what we will do. Here is the formation of our little panel here. We're going to go ahead and get out our flux. I'm going to get another glove on. I'm going to test this iron to see if my mistake has cost this iron its life. Let's see what we got here. Let's see if the iron is still living and breathing. It's been heating up for a few moments now. Ooh, it's not looking good. Oh, it feels kind of hot. Let me see if I put a little bit of stuff on there. And let's see if we can revive this thing. Ooh, that does not look good. Let's go ahead and get the wire brush out. Go ahead and turn on our fume extractor. All right. All right, let's see here if we can get this thing revived. I seriously doubt it. Let's see though. See, it's soldering way there, but this tip, I think, well, it is heating it up, but it's just not quite tinning properly. This thing probably will work with a new tip. So I'm going to go ahead and apply some flux. Let's see if we can get this to work. At least get us through this project. And then you will be also seeing a new soldering iron next week. So we've got a lot of new things to bring into our workspace here. All right, let's see what we can do here. Let's just see if we can do this. I might even be able to revive this with a sandpaper. It's already pretty much gone, but a sandpaper might just get us through for today. Yeah. Let's see here. Let's see if we scrape this a little bit. See what happens. See if we can get this just enough for today. All right. Nope, it's dead. Okay, so, not to fear, we do have another one right here. Walk over here. And like nothing even happened. Pop this out of here. Oh my goodness, I fixed it. No, I'm kidding. All right. Swap these out. Okay, and how do I have this? Let's see. See if I can yank this thing out of here. All right. Have to find a spot for this thing. A little bit of a technical difficulty here. All right, we got it. Okay. All right, and that's going to take a few moments to heat up. We're going to go ahead and make sure we are fluxed up. And while we let the other iron heat up, let's see if we can bring it into view here. See the difference? This is all tinned nicely, and the other one was just completely black. We can look at it. And it might be possible to revive this, but as of right now, it's not looking likely. The heating element looks to be working still. I think we just need to replace this tip, and we'll be in good shape. And I feel this one getting hot, so we are on the right path. With just a minor delay. So I'm just putting this solder into the iron, see if anything happens here. I'm going to go ahead and just put a touch of flux onto the tip. You can see it's getting there. Go ahead and put the old one. I've got a concrete ground here, so I'll just set it on there for now. Make sure not to step on that. And yeah, I didn't replace anything yet. I don't have an extra tip on me, unfortunately. I have a whole new iron that I can sort of swap in for the purpose of this video. And actually, it's getting really hot near the handle. There we go. I see something happening. All right. So we are just going to tack this in place. Just like that. We're going to flip it and do the other side the exact same. And we're really just tacking in these little joints. And actually, right after tacking, we're going to go through and fill in all the solder joints. And there we go. But before we do that, we just want to make sure everything is going to hold. I've got a lot of drips everywhere here from our first run with the old iron. Get this up off of here. Starting to melt, oh no, to our little thing. There we go. There we go, so just a few little joints tacked together will hold our panel in place. And we can go through. Just gonna go ahead and flex this up a little bit more. And we will continue on. There we go. So we're just going to kind of get some solder onto all these copper foils and then pop this thing on the other side and do a nice finished bead. And we are going to also tin the perimeters as we do this. And we do have some little solder right here on the perimeter. I'm going to try not to use that because it might get some impurities from the wood underneath it. There we go. All right. And now we can go ahead and flip this over. We're going to try to do a nice finished bead here. Make sure to flux all the edges for when we tin them. So you're going to want to kind of solder and get a nice rounded bead. Sometimes you have to kind of tap it around with a little bit of extra solder to kind of get that bead. And we have a little bit of impurities showing up here. Probably I sucked up too much of that solder from the perimeter and it kind of got some burned wood, is what it looks like to me. I'm just going to tap this through, trying to keep a wet edge, and that will help us to make that solder line blend in nicely with the one next to it. We want to avoid it looking kind of flat and sunken in. We want it to look nice and rounded. And if it does look kind of flat and sunken in, you might have to add a little bit more material to get it to have that nice rounded shape. And I am using the lead-free solder here, so it does require a little bit more heat, and it's a little bit harder to work with, but from my point of view, it's worth it to avoid the lead contact. And you can still get a pretty nice product. It really doesn't level as easily because of that higher melting temperature, but it still looks good. And it's still patinas, so it is a keeper on my end. There we go. So we're going to kind of go through and tap around till we get everything nice and rounded. And somebody asked, how often do you change the soldering iron tip? Mine burns out very frequently. Maybe the problem is the flux. Well, to be honest with you, I almost never change it out unless it is literally peeling, which it kind of depends how often you are using it. I find that from my end, just from me brushing it with a wire brush and to kind of get all the impurities off, stuff like that. From doing that, in our shop, we're doing that every single day. Multiple times a day, every single time we solder on every single iron. So that wears out the irons pretty quickly. Maybe, I'd probably say monthly. Monthly we change those out. They just stop working, kind of like the one that we saw today that I was trying to use. It won't heat the solder up any longer. So that's what I would say there. Okay, now we are ready to, what I'm going to actually do first is get this little, see if I can get this from this side. I want it to hang right there. So let's see if I can get this thing. I'm just going to make a loop here spin it a few times to make a bit of a braided sort of cable look. And this, I believe, will pretty much work right there. And I have moved my my lead dikes around, so I'm going to see if I can cut this by just wearing it off back and forth. There we go. One of them's off and the other one's off. So now I'm going to put this about right here from the back side, and this thing gets way too hot to hold, so I'm going to hold it with the grosiers. Going to flex this area up very nicely. Grab the iron. Oh, and when we do this, we want to kind of angle this soldering, the solder, so that we can grab a little bit with the tip of it, tip of our iron. So I'm going to put that right there. Grab a little bit and just try to heat this thing up and submerge it into the bead of solder, because we want to try to hide it as much as we can. I'm keeping that heat there, trying to heat it up more. I think that's about as far as we can go. Let that cool. I'm going to kind of tap a few more drops onto there just to try to blend this thing in. Make it look like it's barely even there. Now I believe this is the back side. Let's check, make sure. Yeah, this is the side I want. So this is the back side, so we are right on where we want. I'm going to go ahead and get our little heat-resistant gloves on and go ahead and go through and start to edge bead this. And I'm going to reposition this camera just a little bit, get you up a little bit higher. And now let's see what we can see here. Yeah, that's a lot better. So again, we've got the flux sort of upward angle where we can grab some with the iron as needed. We're going to go ahead and angle our little fume extractor here. See if we can get it to cooperate. That will pretty much do. And then we can grab our, just like that. We're just going to tap this thing all the way around. Grab some, tap it around. And we want it to be a nice rounded bead here. And I tin the foil on the faces all the way around before I even start to do the edge beading, because it ties in really well and it makes it much easier to do. So my recommendation is to go ahead and finish all that tinning all the way around the perimeter before you go through and do the edge beading. And after we do this edge beading, we're going to go ahead and finish off on the front side. And that'll pretty much be, oh, then we need to, of course, patina this. And that will pretty much be the last of this project for today. A few little hiccups with our soldering iron dilemma, but we overcame. Back to the beginning. Make sure we have a nice little bead here. I'll probably beef that up just a hint more. There we go. And now we are ready to go ahead and do our finished bead on this side, the viewing side. So we want a nice substantial amount of solder, and this iron is very hot now. and it is just plowing through this this lead-free solder. There we go. And so we just want these beads to be pretty nice and rounded. Sometimes you can kind of continuously feed the iron. And that'll put enough material to keep that shape that you want. There we go. All right. And approaching the end of this part here. Probably we're going to go back and make sure all of our... Oh, no, you don't want to cover up that little piece in the middle. There we go. If that happens, you might have to tap it around a little bit. There we go. And it'll show itself once again. We're going to go back, and any rough areas, we're just going to try to tap down a little bit, try to make it look a little bit smoother. And then we are pretty much ready to clean this up and get some patina down. So this is looking pretty good, pretty happy with it. Make sure everything... All right. So now we are pretty much done with the soldering iron, turning that off. Not going to make that mistake again, hopefully. At least not today. Now let's go ahead and, once again, our favorite blue glass cleaner. Spray this thing down, wipe it off. And it's a little bit warm still. It's kind of a small panel, so it's going to keep the heat quite a bit. A little bit of this room temperature glass cleaner will get it off a little bit. See if I can scrape off those little soldering droplets. All right, so we are pretty much ready to apply our patina here to our little seashell. All right, looking good. So as usual, we're going to be using the black patina. And we just apply it pretty generously into our rag here and wipe it on. And we're going to want to try to patina all the surfaces. That would include the tinned wire, the edge, all the soldered surfaces. We want it to have a nice finish here, even and consistent. And I'll normally do a couple coats here, try to get everything nice and dark. And like we said, we want to do the perimeter also, the edge and the little wire here. And we'll go ahead and get another coat on. It's kind of like when you paint a room, you kind of need two coats to get that real even look. Anywhere you might have kind of missed a little bit or didn't get perfectly covered with the paint the first round, you need that second coat, and that really seems to really get that nice finish. And this thing, I'm not sure what happened, but this rag got torn up just now. Must have encountered a rough spot. somewhere. Or it could have been touching a hot spot, and it might have, I don't know, might be a rough spot in here somewhere. We're going to go ahead and probably get one more around here, clean it up, and that is it for today's project. There we have it. And of course, one final clean for the road. All right. And with that, everyone, we have our shell. The week number 4 of the May stained glass kit is complete. And so we can go ahead, we'll add it right here next to the rest of our 4 May projects. And so we will be seeing you next week for the week 1 of the June kit. And we'll be looking forward to that. So again, if you enjoyed this video, I hope that you will check out the free Stained Glass Mastery community. And we will see you next week for the week 1 of the June kit. Thank you very much. Goodbye.